"Daddy, look at Grandma, she's alive," said the daughter upon seeing the lady on the sidewalk. David Thompson was breathing heavily while holding his daughter's hand. The day had started like any other Saturday, but now his entire world was crumbling before his eyes. It was when Emily tugged his hand firmly and pointed to the sidewalk across the street. "Daddy, look at Grandma, she's alive," shouted the girl, her high-pitched voice cutting through the city center noise. David felt his blood run cold in his veins. He turned in the direction his daughter pointed and saw a figure sitting on the sidewalk, leaning against the wall of a closed store. Dirty and torn clothes, tangled grey hair falling over her face, trembling hands holding a plastic cup. It couldn't be. "Emily. It's not her. Grandma. Grandma isn't with us anymore," he said, trying to control his voice. But the girl had already let go of his hand and was running across the street, dodging between people hurriedly walking with their shopping bags. David ran after her, his heart beating so hard it felt like it would explode. When he got close, Emily was already standing in front of the lady, her eyes wide open. The woman slowly lifted her face, and David saw. It was her. It was his mother. Mrs. Dorothy was there, sitting on the dirty sidewalk of a busy street, wearing clothes that looked more like rags, her feet bare and bruised. But it was those eyes. Even with the vague and lost look, David would recognize those eyes anywhere. "Mom?" he whispered, his voice faltering. The woman looked at him without showing any recognition. Her eyes passed over his face as if he were just any stranger. She looked back down at the ground, murmuring something incomprehensible. "Grandma, it's me, Emily." The girl knelt on the sidewalk, not minding the dirt. "Grandma, you came back." David stood frozen. His mother had disappeared 2 years ago. 2 years of searching, of posters scattered throughout the city, of sleepless nights imagining the worst. And everyone, absolutely everyone, had told him to accept that she was gone, that it was time to mourn and move on. But she was there, alive, breathing, and completely unaware of everything. "Dorothy?" he tried again, crouching beside his daughter. He slowly reached out his hand, as if approaching a frightened animal. The reaction was immediate. Mrs. Dorothy flinched, pushing herself against the wall, her eyes wide with fear. The plastic cup fell from her hand, scattering some coins on the sidewalk. "No! Go away!" she shouted, her voice hoarse and desperate. "Don't take me! Don't take me!" "Mom, it's me, David, your son." He felt tears burning his eyes. "Please, do you recognize me?" But Dorothy was already on her feet, staggering, trying to escape. Her movements were uncoordinated, as if her body no longer obeyed commands. She stumbled and David grabbed her arm. The feeling was shocking. She was so thin. Her bones felt like they would break under his fingers. "Let me go." She struggled with surprising strength for someone in her condition. "Let me go, thief." People began to stop and stare. David felt the judgmental looks, the suspicions. A well-dressed man holding a homeless lady. He immediately released his mother's arm. Dorothy fell to her knees on the ground. Emily started to cry. "Daddy, why doesn't Grandma remember us?" David didn't know what to answer. He picked up his daughter and stood there, watching his mother struggle to get up and walk away, dragging her bare feet along the sidewalk. She turned a corner and disappeared into the crowd. At that moment, something fell to the ground near where Dorothy had been sitting, a piece of cloth. David bent down and picked it up. It was a handkerchief embroidered with delicate flowers, the initials DT sewn in the corner. He knew that handkerchief. His grandmother had made it for his mother when he was still a child. "It's Grandma's scarf," Emily said softly, touching the dirty fabric. "She always wore it." David clenched the scarf in his hand, feeling the rough texture against his skin. His mother was alive, alive and living on the streets. How had this happened? How had he not found her during 2 years of searching? Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. The drive back home was silent. Emily was quiet in the back seat, hugging her teddy bear, her eyes red from crying so much. David drove on autopilot, his mind spinning in circles. He needed to process what had just happened. He needed to understand. When they got home, Jennifer was in the kitchen preparing lunch. She looked at her husband and immediately sensed something was wrong. What happened? David opened his mouth, but no sound came out. How could he explain? How could he put the impossible into words? "We saw Grandma," Emily said, her voice small. "She's alive, Mommy." Jennifer stopped with the spoon in midair. She looked from her daughter to her husband, waiting for one of them to say it was a joke, but the expression on David's face said it all. "What do you mean you saw your mother?" "David, your mother. I know what everyone thinks. I thought so too, but it was her, Jennifer. It was my mother sitting on a downtown sidewalk begging for money." He took the scarf from his pocket and placed it on the kitchen table. Jennifer recognized it immediately. Dorothy always carried that scarf. It was one of the few things she kept from her own mother. My God! Jennifer sat down heavily in a chair. But how? How did she? I don't know. She didn't recognize me. She didn't recognize Emily. She got scared when I tried to approach her. She ran away. "She was wearing dirty clothes, Mommy," Emily said, her eyes filling with tears again, "and no shoes. Her feet were hurt." Jennifer pulled her daughter into a hug. She looked at her husband over Emily's head, her eyes full of worry. "You need to go back there. You need to find her again." "I know, but she ran away from me. How can I approach her if she's scared?" "We'll figure it out. But we can't leave her on the street, David. Not in the condition you described." David nodded, feeling the weight of guilt crushing his chest. How had he stopped searching? How had he accepted that she was lost forever? If he had searched more, insisted more, maybe he would have found her sooner. Before it came to this, the memory of the last time he saw his mother came back with force. It was 2 years ago. They had argued, an ugly fight, with harsh words he should never have said. All because of the house. That damned house. Dorothy had lived alone since David's father had passed away 15 years earlier. It was an old house in the Upper East Side neighborhood in southern New York. Over the years, maintenance became increasingly difficult. The roof leaked, the wiring was old, the walls began to crack. David suggested she sell it and move to a smaller apartment, easier to take care of. But Dorothy refused. She said that house held all her memories. The argument escalated. David insisted she was being stubborn, that it made no sense to keep such a big house. Dorothy countered that he only wanted the money from the sale. The words got harsher and harsher. David said things he regretted as soon as they left his mouth. He said she was selfish, that she didn't think of anyone but herself, that she was making everything difficult. Dorothy was silent for a long moment. Then, with a calm voice that was more frightening than any scream, she said that if he thought she was a burden, then he didn't need to worry anymore, that she would take care of herself. David slammed the door as he left. He didn't come back the next day. Not the next day either. He was angry, hurt. He hoped his mother would call, that she would apologize. But she didn't call. A week later, when he finally decided to go there to make peace, the house was empty. The neighbors said they hadn't seen her for days. Her clothes were there, some personal belongings, but Dorothy had vanished. That's when the despair began. David searched in hospitals, shelters, police stations. He put up posters all over the city. He hired a private investigator, but there were no traces. His mother had simply disappeared, as if she had evaporated into thin air. After 6 months of intense searching and no leads, the investigator suggested that perhaps she didn't want to be found, or that the worst had happened. David tried not to think about that, but as the months passed, as no news came, he began to accept the inevitable. His mother was lost. Forever. And now he discovered that she had been there all along. Alive. But lost in a different way. Lost inside her own mind. "Daddy," Emily tugged on his sleeve. "Are we going to get Grandma tomorrow?" "Yes, sweetheart. Yes, we are." "Promise?" "I promise." But David had no idea how to keep that promise. How to bring back someone who didn't remember who you were. How to fix what he had broken. That night, David could barely sleep. Lying next to Jennifer, he kept staring at the ceiling, his mind always returning to the image of Dorothy sitting on the sidewalk, the lost expression on her face, the fear in her eyes when he tried to touch her. What had happened in those 2 years? Where had she been? How did she end up on the streets? At 5 in the morning, he gave up trying to sleep. He got up quietly so as not to wake Jennifer and went to the office. He opened the desk drawer where he kept the last things that had been found in Dorothy's house when she disappeared. Old photos, some documents, a handwritten recipe book. At the bottom of the drawer, he found what he was looking for. The private investigator's report. He reread every page, looking for something he might have missed the first time. Some clue, some detail. That's when something caught his attention. A footnote on one of the final pages. The investigator had mentioned that he checked the shelters for homeless people, but none had a record of anyone with Dorothy Thompson's name or description. But what if she wasn't using her real name? What if she didn't want to be identified? It was possible. And if that were the case, it meant that Dorothy had chosen to disappear. At least at first. Before something happened to her mind. David picked up the phone and called the investigator, even though it was so early. The man answered on the 3rd ring, his voice groggy with sleep. "Mr. Thompson, it's 5:30 in the morning. I'm sorry, but it's urgent. My mother, I found her." There was a pause on the other end of the line. "You found her? Where?" "Living on the streets downtown. But she didn't recognize me. I think she has some memory problem." "My God! And are you sure it was her?" "Absolutely. My daughter recognized her too. She was wearing a scarf that belonged to my mother. There's no doubt." "I see. And what do you need from me?" "I need you to resume the investigation. But this time, look for someone who doesn't want to be identified, someone who might be using another name. Check the shelters again, the spots where homeless people gather. She must have a place where she sleeps, where she spends her time." "I'll do that. But Mr. Thompson, if she has memory problems, as you said, she'll need medical help, professional help." "I know, but first I need to find her again, and this time I won't let her get away." He hung up the phone and sat in the darkness of the office, watching the day break through the window. There had to be a way to bring his mother back, there had to be. When the clock struck 7, Emily appeared at the office door, still in her pajamas, rubbing her eyes. "Daddy, can we go get Grandma now?" David looked at his daughter, 6 years old, and already had a bigger heart than many adults. "It's still very early, my love, but yes, we will, today itself." "Can I bring a snack for her? Grandma must be hungry." Emily's innocence broke his heart, but it also gave him hope. If a 6-year-old hadn't given up, how could he? "Yes, you can. Let's prepare a really tasty snack for Grandma." They went to the kitchen. Jennifer was already awake, making coffee. The 3 of them made sandwiches together, filled a bag with fruits, water, and a clean blanket that Jennifer insisted on including. "It's cold in the morning," she explained. "She'll need it." At 9 o'clock, they returned downtown. David parked in the same spot as the day before and walked to where they had seen Dorothy. But the sidewalk was empty. There was no sign of her. "She's not here," Emily said, disappointment evident in her voice. "She must have gone somewhere else. Let's look." They walked through the downtown streets for hours. David went into stores, showed the old photo of Dorothy he carried on his phone, asked if anyone had seen a lady with that description. Most people shook their heads. Some looked with pity. 1 or 2 averted their gaze, uncomfortable. It was almost noon when a saleswoman at a clothing store looked at the photo more carefully. "I think I've seen her, yes. She passes by here from time to time. Sits over there in the square." She pointed to a small square across the street. "But not every day, it's kind of random." "Do you know where she sleeps, or where she spends most of her time?" "I don't know, sir, but there are some folks who live around here. Maybe they know. They usually hang out near the bus terminal at night." David thanked her and headed to the square. He sat on a bench with Emily and kept watching, waiting. The girl was quiet beside him, swinging her legs. "Daddy, why did Grandma end up like this?" "I don't know yet, my love, but we'll find out." "Will she remember me again?" David didn't know what to answer. He didn't want to give his daughter false hope. but he also couldn't take away her hope. "We'll do everything to help her remember." They stayed in the square until 3 in the afternoon. Dorothy didn't show up. Emily was tired and hungry. David decided it was time to go home and try again the next day. But as they walked back to the car, Emily suddenly stopped and pointed. "Daddy, look!" Across the street there was a small gathering of people, and in the middle of them, sitting on the ground, was Dorothy. She seemed to be talking to someone, although her words were unintelligible even from a distance. David and Emily ran across the street, but as soon as they got close, Dorothy looked up and saw them. The reaction was immediate. She stood up staggering and started to move away. "Mom, wait!" David shouted. But Dorothy was already walking fast, disappearing among the people. David went after her, but lost sight of her when she turned a corner. When he got there, she had vanished. "Damn," he muttered under his breath. A voice behind him made him turn. "She doesn't like men in suits." It was an older man, with graying hair and unshaven beard, sitting on a cardboard box. "What?" "Mrs. Dorothy. That's her name, right? She doesn't like men in suits, gets scared." David approached slowly. "You know her?" "I do. We've been living around here for a while now. She showed up about a year ago. At first she talked to herself, said she had to wait for her son to ask for forgiveness. Then over time she got more and more confused. Now she doesn't remember much. A year. Dorothy had been on the streets for at least a year, and he hadn't found her. Where does she sleep?" "There's a shelter over on 5th Avenue. She goes there from time to time, but she uses another name, calls herself Mary, Mrs. Mary." "Why does she use another name?" The man shrugged. "Who knows? Everyone here has their reasons. Lots of people don't want to be found. There are those running from someone, those ashamed of their family. Every story is a story." "And do you know why she's afraid of men in suits?" "I don't know the details, but she always talks when she's confused about a man in a suit who yelled at her, who said bad things. I think it's all mixed up in her head, past and present all jumbled." David felt the guilt tighten even more. He was that man in the suit. He had yelled at her, had said bad things, and now whenever she saw someone in a suit, she relived that moment. "How can I approach her then?" "I don't know if you can. She's very distrustful. But the little girl," he pointed to Emily, "she might have a chance. Mrs. Dorothy has a different way with children." David looked at his daughter. Emily looked back at him with those big, hopeful eyes. "Can you take me to the shelter she goes to?" "I can, but she's not there now. Usually only goes in the late afternoon when it gets cold." "Then we'll wait." They sat right there on the sidewalk. David called Jennifer to let her know he'd be late. The sun descended on the horizon, painting the sky orange and pink. People began gathering in small groups, sharing blankets and pieces of cardboard to protect themselves from the cold that came with the night. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. At 6 in the evening, the man who had helped David stood up. "Let's go. It must be about the time she shows up." They walked a few blocks until they reached an old building. A faded sign out front said, "Hope Shelter." It wasn't big, but it was clean. Lights were on in the windows, and the smell of food came from inside. "They serve dinner at 7, the man explained. "Most folks come for the food and a warm place to sleep, but you have to get here early, because spots are limited." David watched the people beginning to gather at the entrance. They were men and women of all ages, some young, some old, all with the same tired expression of those fighting just to survive another day. And then he saw her. Dorothy was coming down the street, dragging her feet. She walked slowly, stopping from time to time as if she'd forgotten where she was going. But eventually she reached the shelter's door. "There," Emily whispered. "I know, sweetheart. Now you'll approach slowly, okay? Don't say my name. Don't mention I'm your father. Just try to talk to her." Emily nodded, serious. She held the bag with the snack they had prepared in the morning and walked over to Dorothy. David stayed a few meters behind, hidden behind a parked car, watching. Emily stopped in front of Dorothy. The elderly woman looked at her with that vague expression. "Hi," said Emily in her child's voice. "I brought a snack. Want to share with me?" Dorothy looked at the bag, then back at the girl. "Snack?" "Yeah, there's a sandwich and fruit. It's delicious." Emily sat on the shelter's entrance step and opened the bag. She took out a sandwich and started eating, making exaggerated sounds of satisfaction. So yummy." Dorothy stood still, watching. Then, slowly, she sat down beside Emily. The girl smiled and offered a sandwich. "Here, it's for you." Dorothy took the sandwich with trembling hands. She looked at it for a long moment, as if unsure what to do. Then she brought it to her mouth and took a small bite. Her features softened. "Tasty," she murmured. "Right, I made it myself. Well, me and a person helped me." "You're pretty," Dorothy said suddenly. You look like someone I used to know." "Oh, who?" I don't remember anymore." The two ate in silence. David watched from afar, his heart heavy. Emily was doing what he couldn't. She was making a connection. After finishing the sandwich, Emily took an apple from her bag and started peeling it with a small plastic knife she had brought. "My grandma always peeled apples for me," she said casually. "She said apples with skin are harder to chew." Dorothy looked at the girl more carefully. Your grandma?" "Yes, but I haven't seen her in a long time. I miss her a lot." "Miss," Dorothy repeated the word as if testing its meaning. "I miss someone too. I don't know who, but I do." "I bet your family misses you too," Emily said softly. "Family?" Dorothy fell silent for a moment. "I had a son, a boy. He was a good boy. But then I don't remember what happened. It's all dark here." She touched her own head. "All dark and confusing." "That must be very hard." Emily carefully held Dorothy's hand. "When I get confused, someone helps me. Do you have someone who helps you?" "No, I have no one. I'm alone." "No, you're not. You have me now. I can help you." Dorothy looked at the girl, and for the first time since David had found her again, he saw a flicker of something in her eyes. Recognition, affection. It was hard to tell. "You're good," Dorothy said. "You're a good girl. And you're a good grandma," Emily replied. "I am?" "Yes, you are." They sat there for a few more minutes until someone from the shelter called saying dinner was ready. Dorothy stood up slowly. "I have to go. Otherwise there won't be any spots left." "That's okay. Can I come visit you tomorrow?" Dorothy seemed to consider the question. "You'll come back?" "Yes, I will. I promise." "Promises are important." "Yes, they are. And I always keep my promises." Dorothy nodded and went into the shelter. Emily sat on the steps until she disappeared through the door. Then she got up and ran to David. "I did it, Daddy. I managed to talk to her." David hugged his daughter tightly, trying to hold back tears. "You were amazing, sweetheart. Very, very amazing. She remembers you, you know?" "Not clearly, but she does. She said she had a son, a good boy." The tears David had been trying to hold back finally fell. His mother still held some memory of him. Even if confused, even if fragmented, it was still there. "We'll come back tomorrow," Emily said with determination. "Every day until she remembers everything. Yes, we will." On the way back home, David stopped at the shelter to speak with the coordinator. He explained the situation, said that the woman who identified herself as Mary was actually his missing mother. The coordinator, a woman named Susan, listened carefully. "She's been coming here for about 8 months, Susan explained. At first she resisted, didn't want to give any personal information, insisted her name was Mary, not Mary something, just Mary. Over time she became more and more confused. Sometimes she doesn't even remember the fake name she gave. It's sad to see." "Does she have anything? Belongings? Documents?" "She has a small bag that she never lets go of, but she never lets anyone see what's inside. She sleeps hugging it." "Have you tried medical help?" "We have." But she refuses. And we can't force it, you know. We offer food, shelter, clean clothes. But she's an adult. It has to be her choice to accept more help. What if I wanted to take her home to care for her? Susan sighed. That would be ideal. But again, she has to agree to go. If she doesn't agree, there's not much we can do, unless she's declared incapable of making decisions for herself. But that requires legal proceedings, medical evaluation, everything very time-consuming. So, what can I do? What your daughter did today. Create a connection. Gaining her trust. With time and patience, maybe she'll accept help. Time and patience. David had wasted 2 years. Now at least he knew where to find her. He wasn't going to waste another minute. In the following days, they established a routine. David would take Emily to the shelter every day after school. He kept his distance while the girl sat with Dorothy and talked. Sometimes they brought food. Other times, they just talked. Gradually, Dorothy began to open up. She told confusing stories about her past, mixing up times and people. Sometimes she talked about a boy who played in the backyard. David knew it was him. Other times, she talked about a house with big windows and a garden full of flowers. It was the house where he had grown up, the house they had fought over. 1 week after the reunion, Emily managed to make Dorothy laugh. It was a small laugh, almost shy, but it was there. David, watching from afar, felt a wave of emotion so strong he had to turn away so no one would see his tears. It was in these small moments that he saw glimpses of the mother he knew, the strong woman who raised him alone after his father passed away, the caring grandmother who made cookies for Emily. She was still there somewhere beneath the layers of confusion and fear. Jennifer was supportive but also worried. What if she never gets better? What if she never remembers? Then we'll love her just the way she is now, David answered. But she needs medical care. She can't keep living on the streets. I know, I'm trying, but I can't force her. David's work situation was also complicated. He was a project manager at a technology company, and his constant absences were being noticed. His boss called him in for a talk. David, I need to know if you're committed to this project. I can't have someone who's absent half the days. I'm going through a difficult family situation. I understand, but the company needs you too. You'll have to choose. Choose between work and your mother, as if that were a possible choice. I'll figure it out, was all he could say. But he didn't know how to figure it out. He couldn't abandon his mother now that he had found her, but he also had bills to pay, a family to support. It was Jennifer who suggested the solution. Why don't you take a leave? Use your accumulated vacation time. Ask for unpaid leave if you need to. At least until we sort out the situation with your mother. It was risky. It meant less money coming in. But Jennifer was right. Some things were more important than money. David requested the leave. His boss wasn't happy, but he accepted. With more free time, David started going to the shelter, not only in the afternoon with Emily, but also in the morning. He met other people living on the streets, heard their stories. Each had arrived there through a different path. Mental health problems, job loss, family breakdown, addictions. The reasons varied, but the result was the same. People invisible to society, struggling to survive day after day. One day, one of the men who slept at the shelter said something that made David stop and think. Your mother. She didn't end up here by accident. In the beginning, when she showed up, she was still lucid. Someone asked why she was on the street, and she said she had decided to disappear, that she wanted to see if anyone would miss her. I think it was some kind of test, you know. But then things got confused in her head, and the test became reality. A test. Dorothy had disappeared on purpose to see if her son would look for her, and he had looked for months. But he gave up, accepted that she was lost. And meanwhile, she was here, waiting. Waiting for him to prove that he cared. And when her mind started to fail, when confusion took over, she got trapped in this reality she herself had created. The guilt David felt intensified. But along with the guilt came a renewed determination. He would bring his mother back, no matter how long it took. 2 weeks after the reunion, something changed. Emily was sitting with Dorothy as always, talking about random things. Suddenly, Dorothy looked at the girl and said, "Emily, your name is Emily." The girl's eyes widened. "Yes, I'm Emily. You remembered." Dorothy touched the girl's face with trembling fingers. "Emily, my granddaughter. I remember." "That's right, Grandma, it's me. Where am I? Why am I here?" The clarity lasted only a few seconds. Then the confusion returned to Dorothy's eyes and she looked around without understanding. But it had been a moment, a flash of memory. It was a start. David ran over to them. "She remembered, Daddy. She remembered my name. I saw, sweetheart, I saw." He seized the moment and approached Dorothy. She looked at him, and for the first time since the reunion, she showed no fear, only confusion. "Who are you?" "I'm David, your son." "Son?" "Yes, your son who loves you very much and wants to help you." Dorothy fell silent, processing. Then she said something that broke David's heart. "My son abandoned me." "No, I didn't abandon you. I looked for you. I looked for a long time, and now I've found you, and I won't abandon you again. Never again." "Promise?" "I promise." Dorothy looked at him for a long moment. Then, slowly, she nodded. "Okay." That was all she said, but it was enough. That night, David spoke with Susan again. "She's starting to recognize me. I think if I ask, she might agree to come with me. Then try, but go slowly. Don't force anything." The next day, David arrived at the shelter with Emily and Jennifer. It was Saturday, and they had the whole day. Dorothy was sitting outside, watching people pass by. "Hi, Grandma." Emily sat beside her. "Hi, girl," Dorothy replied. She didn't use the name, but at least she recognized she had seen Emily before. "This is my mother, Jennifer. She wanted to meet you." Jennifer approached carefully, remembering the instructions not to startle Dorothy. "Hello, Mrs. Dorothy. It's a pleasure to finally meet you. Emily talks a lot about you." Dorothy studied Jennifer. "You're pretty." "Thank you. You are too." Dorothy looked at her own dirty clothes and laughed bitterly. "No, I'm not. I'm ugly. I'm dirty." "No, you're not, Grandma," Emily said. "You just need a warm bath and clean clothes. I bet you'll look beautiful." "Bath?" "We have a bathtub at our house," Emily continued, as if just chatting casually. "There's a warm shower, too, and the guest room has a super soft bed. My mother always puts on fresh-smelling sheets." Dorothy looked at the girl with interest. "Fresh-smelling sheets?" "Yes, it smells like lavender. It's so nice to sleep there. It's been a long time since I slept in a bed." "Then come sleep at our house tonight, please?" Dorothy looked from the girl to David, then to Jennifer. I don't know." "You don't have to decide now," David said calmly. "But we'd really like you to come, just to visit. You don't have to stay if you don't want to. Just a visit." Dorothy was silent for a long time. She was clearly struggling internally, trying to decide if she could trust them. "The boy in the suit," she finally said. "He yelled at me." "I know. I was that boy, Mom. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry I yelled, for saying bad things. It was the biggest mistake of my life. You said I was selfish. I did, and I was wrong, completely wrong. You wanted my money. It wasn't about money, never was. I was worried about you, but I expressed it in the worst possible way." Dorothy studied him. "You're different." "I am?" "You're more sad." The boy in the suit wasn't sad. He was angry. "I became sad when I lost you, and now that I've found you, I don't want to lose you again." Dorothy took Emily's hand. "Is the little girl coming along?" "Yes, Grandma. I'll take care of you." "All right," Dorothy said after another long silence. "I'll go. But just to visit." "Just to visit," David agreed, though he knew that once he took her home, he would do everything to make her stay. They walked slowly to the car. Dorothy stopped every few steps, looking around as if trying to memorize the way back. When they reached the car, she looked at it suspiciously. "Is it safe?" "Yes, very safe." I've never been in a car like this, so beautiful. Get in, you'll like it. Emily helped Dorothy into the back seat and sat beside her. David drove slowly, being careful with every turn. He didn't want to scare his mother. Dorothy remained silent throughout the ride, looking out the window with a wondrous expression, as if seeing the city for the first time. When they arrived home, David stopped the car and sat for a moment, gathering courage. This was the decisive moment. If he could make Dorothy feel safe at home, maybe he could keep her there. And then he could finally get her proper medical help. "We're here," he announced softly. Dorothy looked at the house through the car window. It was a large, two-story house with a front garden and light-colored paint. Nothing like the old house where she had lived. But still, something in her face changed. "I've been here before," she murmured. "Yes, Mother. You came here several times. To visit Emily when she was a baby." "Baby." "Come on, Grandma." Emily pulled Dorothy's hand. "I'll show you my room. I have lots of toys." They got out of the car. Dorothy held tightly to Emily's hand as if the girl were an anchor keeping her in the present. They entered the house. The interior was bright and clean, with modern but cozy furniture. Family photos decorated the walls. Dorothy stopped in front of a large photo in the living room. It was a picture of 3 generations, Dorothy sitting in a chair, David standing behind her, and Emily on her grandmother's lap. It had been taken 4 years ago during one of the last times Dorothy had visited before her disappearance. "That's me." Dorothy touched the photo with trembling fingers. I remember that day." "You do?" David approached, excited. "I remember. The girl was 2 years old. She sang to me, a song about a bird." "It was the song Little White Dove," Emily said. "You taught me." "I taught—" "Come on, Grandma. I'll show you the room where you'll be staying." They went upstairs. David had prepared the guest room in recent days. He changed the sheets, put fresh flowers on the nightstand, hung clean towels in the private bathroom. He wanted everything to be perfect. Dorothy entered the room and stopped. She looked around, absorbing every detail. The large bed with a white comforter, the light curtains that let the light in, the small sofa near the window. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "It's yours," David said, "for as long as you want to stay." Dorothy went to the bed and touched the comforter. So soft. "Would you like to take a bath?" Jennifer offered kindly. "I set out clean clothes for you, and then we can make a really nice dinner." Dorothy looked at Jennifer, then at David, then at Emily. Her eyes filled with tears. "Why? Why are you being so nice to me?" "Because we love you," David said simply, "and because you're family." "Family?" "Yes. Family doesn't give up on each other. And I will never give up on you." Dorothy broke down in tears. Jennifer hugged her, letting her cry. They were tears of so much pent-up emotion, so much fear, so much confusion. But they were also tears of relief. Relief at finally being home. After calming down, Dorothy agreed to take a bath. Jennifer helped her, taking care of every detail with a tenderness that moved David. When Dorothy came out of the bathroom, clean and wearing comfortable clothes, she seemed like a different person. "Look, Grandma," Emily clapped her hands. "You look beautiful." Dorothy touched her own hair, now clean and brushed. "Is there a mirror?" Jennifer took her to the large mirror in the bedroom. Dorothy stood still in front of it, studying her own reflection as if she were seeing a stranger. "I've gotten old," she said finally. "We've all aged," David replied, "but you're still beautiful." "I don't feel beautiful. I feel broken." "Then we'll help you put the pieces back together." They had dinner together for the first time in 2 years. Jennifer made Dorothy's favorite dish, which David had mentioned, roasted chicken with potatoes and salad. Dorothy ate slowly, savoring every bite as if it were a feast. "It's delicious," she said. "It's been a while since I've eaten something like this." "You can have as much as you want." Jennifer served her more. "There's plenty." After dinner, they stayed in the living room talking, or rather, trying to talk. Dorothy was still confused, jumping from one topic to another, mixing up time periods. But she was there, and that was what mattered. When it was time for bed, Emily insisted on helping her grandmother get settled. "I'll tuck you in real snug," said the girl, pulling the comforter up to Dorothy's chin. "And I'll leave the hallway light on so you won't be scared if you wake up in the dark. You're a good girl." "It's because I love you, Grandma." Dorothy held Emily's hand. "I love you too, I think. I don't really remember what it's like to love. But there's a warmth here." She touched her chest. "I think it's love." Emily kissed her grandmother's forehead. "It is love." After Emily left, David sat in the chair next to the bed. "You can go," Dorothy said. "You don't have to stay here." "I want to stay, at least until you fall asleep." "Why?" "Because I spent 2 years not knowing where you were. I don't want to leave you alone now." Dorothy fell silent, processing. "The boy in the suit. Was that you when you were younger?" "That was me 2 years ago, but I'm not that man anymore." "What changed?" "I lost you, and I realized nothing else mattered. Not work, not money, not the house. Nothing. You were what mattered, and I had lost you because of my stupid pride." "Pride," Dorothy repeated the word. "I had pride, too. I wanted you to notice, to miss me. But then everything got confusing. I did miss you every day, every minute." "Really?" "Really. And now that I've found you, I'll do everything to make sure you're okay." Dorothy closed her eyes. "I'm tired." "Then sleep. I'll stay here." And he did. David sat in the chair next to the bed until he was sure Dorothy was sound asleep. Then, slowly, he left the room and went downstairs. Jennifer was in the kitchen putting away the dinner dishes. "How is she?" "Sleeping." Finally. "And you? How are you?" David sat in a chair and buried his face in his hands. "I don't know. Relief that she's here, guilt over what happened, fear of what's ahead." Jennifer sat beside him and took his hand. "We'll get through this together, one day at a time. She needs medical help, professional help, but how do I convince her to accept it?" "With time. She trusts Emily. Maybe we can use that." "I don't want to manipulate her." "It's not manipulation. It's helping her make the right decision, a decision she can't make on her own right now." David knew Jennifer was right. Dorothy wasn't in a condition to decide about her own health. She needed help, but he hated the idea of forcing anything. "I'll call doctors tomorrow. I'll see what our options are." "Good idea. And in the meantime, let's just focus on making her feel safe here. The more comfortable she gets, the easier it will be when it's time for treatment." That night, David also barely slept. Every hour he got up to check if Dorothy was still in the bedroom. Each time she was there, sleeping quietly. One time, around 3 in the morning, he found her awake, sitting on the bed, looking out the window. "Can't sleep?" he asked quietly, so as not to startle her. "I was dreaming. I dreamed of a house. A big house with wooden windows and a garden full of roses." "Our house," David said. "The house where I grew up." "Were we happy there?" "Very happy." "What happened to the house?" "It's still there. Closed up. I didn't have the heart to sell it." "Why?" "Because it was yours. And I had hoped that one day you'd come back." Dorothy fell silent for a long moment. "Can I see it, the house?" "Of course. Whenever you want." "Tomorrow?" "If you want, yes." "I do. I need to see it. I need to remember." David nodded. "Then tomorrow we'll go." Dorothy lay down again and closed her eyes. This time she slept until dawn. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. The next day after breakfast, David, Jennifer, Emily and Dorothy got into the car and drove to Dorothy's old house. It was about 40 minutes away, in an older neighborhood of the city. The streets were narrower here, the houses older but full of character. When they turned onto the street where the house stood, Dorothy leaned forward in her seat, her eyes wide. "I know this street." "You do?" You lived here for over 40 years. They stopped in front of a green iron gate. Behind it, a 2-story house urgently in need of care. The paint was peeling. The garden had turned into a thicket. Some roof tiles were missing. But you could still see it had been a beautiful house. David opened the gate. The sound of metal against metal echoed through the quiet street. They walked along the stone path to the front door. David took the key from his pocket and inserted it into the lock. The door opened with a creak. The interior was dusty and smelled of mold. Furniture covered with white sheets looked like ghosts in the dim light. David opened the windows, letting the sunlight in. Dorothy stood still in the doorway, her eyes scanning every corner of the room. Slowly, she began to walk, touching things. The wall, the stair railing, an old table. "The clock," she said suddenly, pointing to a wall. "Where is the clock?" David looked. There had been a wall clock there, an old clock that had belonged to Dorothy's father. "It's in the bedroom upstairs. I stored it before closing up the house." Dorothy went up the stairs, her steps light on the wooden steps. David, Jennifer, and Emily followed. She went straight to the main bedroom, stopped at the door, observing. "Our room," she whispered. "Mine and William's." William was the name of Dorothy's late husband. "Yes, you slept here for 30 years. Dorothy entered slowly. She went to the wardrobe and opened it. Some old clothes still hung inside. She took out a blue dress and held it against her body. "This was my Sunday dress. William liked it when I wore it. You looked beautiful in it." "William? He's gone, isn't he?" "Yes, it's been 15 years. Dorothy nodded, not seeming surprised or sad. It was as if she already knew but needed someone to confirm it. "I miss him." "Me too." Dorothy put the dress back and turned around, her eyes fixed on the clock on the dresser. She went to it and picked it up carefully. "Does it still work?" "Yes. I always wind it. William used to wind it every night before bed. It was a ritual. I remember." Dorothy hugged the clock to her chest. Tears began to stream down her face. "I remember. I remember him. I remember this house. I remember you when you were little." "You remember?" David held his mother's shoulders gently. "I do. It's all here, just hidden. But being here, it brings everything back." "Mom!" David was also crying now. "You can come back. You can live here again. We can fix up the house, put everything in order." But Dorothy shook her head. "I can't. Not alone. I get confused alone." "Then you won't be alone. I'll be here. We'll hire someone to stay with you. Or you can stay at our house, whatever you prefer." Dorothy looked around the room, then back at David. "I want to stay with you. There are too many memories here, some good, some bad. I need a new place to start over." "Then that's what we'll do. But I want you to know that this house will always be yours. It will always be here, waiting whenever you want to visit." Dorothy nodded. She returned the clock to the dresser and left the room. They went down the stairs in silence. Before leaving, Dorothy stopped and looked back one last time. "Goodbye, house," she whispered. "Thank you for the memories." On the way back, Dorothy was more talkative. She told stories about the house, about when David was a child, about William. Some stories David remembered, others were new to him. Some were coherent, others were confused and made no sense, but it didn't matter. She was remembering, and that was all that mattered. When they got home, there was a strange car parked out front. A man was waiting at the door. "Who is that?" Jennifer asked. "It's Dr. Michael. I called him yesterday, asked him to come today." "David, you didn't say you were bringing a doctor. Because I knew you would try to stop me. But we need professional help. We need to know what's wrong with my mother and how to help her. What if she doesn't want to talk to him? We'll try to convince her gently." They got out of the car. Dorothy looked at the unfamiliar man with suspicion. "Who is this?" "He's a friend of mine, Mom. Dr. Michael, he's a doctor. He wanted to meet you." "I don't want a doctor. I know, but he just wants to talk, just a conversation. Can we do that?" Dorothy looked from David to the doctor, then back. "Just talking? Just talking, I promise." "Okay, but the little girl stays with me." "She will. Emily held her grandmother's hand. "I won't leave you." They went into the house. Dr. Michael was a middle-aged man with graying hair and a kind smile. He sat in the living room with Dorothy and began asking simple questions. What was her full name, what day it was, where she was? Dorothy answered some questions easily. Others she struggled with. When the doctor asked what year it was, she said 2003. She was off by more than 20 years. After half an hour of conversation, Dr. Michael asked to speak with David privately. They went to the office. "It's dementia, no doubt," the doctor said as soon as the door was closed. "From the symptoms you described and what I observed, I'd say it's moderate stage, heading toward advanced. She has moments of clarity, but they will become increasingly rare." "Is there treatment?" "There's no cure, if that's what you're asking. But there are medications that can slow the progression, and therapies that can help maintain cognitive functions for as long as possible. And the fear she feels, the constant confusion, that can also be treated with medication, anti-anxiety drugs, antidepressants. It will help her feel calmer, more secure." "What do I need to do?" "First, she needs a full evaluation, blood tests, an MRI of the brain, more detailed cognitive tests. I can arrange all that, but she'll have to cooperate." "I'll make her cooperate." "Don't force her. People with dementia can become very agitated if they feel forced. It has to be her choice." "Then how do I convince her?" "Use the granddaughter. I saw how she responds to the girl. Let Emily explain that it's important, that it will help Grandma feel better." David nodded. When they returned to the living room, they found Emily showing old photos to Dorothy. The grandmother looked at each photo with fascination, as if seeing them for the first time. "Grandma," Emily said when she saw the doctor and David return, "Dr. Michael said there are some tests that can help you remember things better. Do you want to do them?" Dorothy looked at her granddaughter. "Tests?" "Yeah, like taking pictures of your brain to see what's going on inside. It doesn't hurt at all. And it will help." "Will it really help?" "Yes, it will, and I'll go with you. I'll hold your hand the whole time." Dorothy thought for a moment, then nodded. "Okay. If the little girl goes with me, I'll go." Dr. Michael scheduled the tests for the following week. In the meantime, he prescribed initial medication to help with anxiety and improve Dorothy's sleep. In the following days, they established a routine. Dorothy woke up early, often confused about where she was, but Emily would go to her room every morning before school and talk with her, helping her get oriented. Jennifer prepared breakfast and made sure Dorothy took her medicine. During the day, David stayed with her, talking, watching TV, taking short walks in the garden. Some days were better than others. There were days when Dorothy remembered almost everything, recognized everyone, had coherent conversations. Other days she was completely lost, didn't recognize anyone, had panic attacks thinking she was in danger. One particularly difficult day happened 4 days after she had arrived. Dorothy woke up screaming, saying that men were trying to rob her. David ran to the room and found her hiding in the bathroom, trembling. "Mom, it's okay. There's no one here. You're safe." "Yes, there are men. They were in my room." "There's no one, look." He opened the closet doors, looked under the bed. "See? No one." But Dorothy wouldn't calm down. Jennifer called Dr. Michael, who instructed them to increase the dose of the anxiety medication. It took hours for Dorothy to finally calm down and accept that she was safe. Episodes like this were draining for everyone. Emily started having nightmares. Jennifer was exhausted from waking up multiple times a night, and David felt the weight of responsibility crushing his shoulders. One night, after a particularly difficult day, Jennifer and David had their first big argument since Dorothy had come back. "We can't go on like this," Jennifer said, her voice tired. "Emily is suffering, I'm suffering, you're suffering. And what do you want me to do? Put her in an institution?" "That's not what I'm saying, but we need help, professional help. We can't take care of her alone. She's my mother, my responsibility. And Emily is your daughter, also your responsibility, and she needs you. She needs the father who plays with her, who isn't constantly worried and stressed." David knew Jennifer was right, but admitting that meant admitting he wasn't capable of taking care of his own mother alone. "What do you suggest?" "Hire a caregiver. Someone trained in dealing with dementia. Who can be here during the day while you work? Who can help at night if she has an episode? That costs money, a lot of money. Then let's find a way, but we can't go on like this. We'll all collapse. The next day, David started looking for caregivers. He interviewed several people. Some were good, but too expensive. Others were affordable, but had no experience. Finally, he found Mrs. Martha, a 60-year-old woman with over 20 years of experience caring for dementia patients. "I've seen it all," she said during the interview. "Aggressive patients, patients who run away, patients who won't eat. And I've learned that each one is unique. There's no one-size-fits-all approach. My mother has moments of clarity, but she also has panic episodes, especially at night. It's common. Sundowning often worsens the confusion. We call it sundown syndrome, but there are techniques to minimize it. Consistent routine, proper lighting, calming activities before sleep. Would you stay overnight? If necessary, yes. But usually, once we establish a routine, the nighttime episodes decrease." David hired her. Mrs. Martha started the next day. Dorothy initially was resistant, not wanting a stranger in the house, but Mrs. Martha had a calm and patient way that eventually won over the resistance. "Mrs. Dorothy, I'm not here to boss you around," explained Martha. "I'm here as a friend, to help when you need it. If you don't want my help, that's okay. I'll just sit here and knit. But if you want to talk, or take a walk, or play cards, I'm here." Gradually, Dorothy began to accept Martha, Dorothy. And with that acceptance came a noticeable improvement. Mrs. Martha knew exactly what to say during an episode of confusion, how to redirect when Dorothy became agitated, how to stimulate her memory without pressuring her. The week of the tests arrived. Emily missed school to go with Dorothy as promised. The hospital was big and scary, but Emily held her grandmother's hand tightly throughout the process. The MRI was especially difficult. Dorothy had to stay still inside a noisy tube for almost an hour. She panicked several times, but Emily was there on the outside, talking to her through the microphone, singing songs, telling stories. When it finally ended, Dorothy came out of the machine, trembling and sweaty. Emily hugged her tightly. "You were so brave, Grandma, so brave. It was scary." "I know, but it's over now, and now we can go get ice cream. What flavor do you want?" The simple promise of ice cream was enough to calm Dorothy. They went to an ice cream parlor near the hospital. Dorothy ate 2 chocolate ice creams, smiling like a child. The test results took 2 weeks. When they finally arrived, Dr. Michael called David for a meeting in his office. "The news is not good," he began without beating around the bush. "The MRI shows significant brain atrophy, especially in the hippocampus and frontal cortex. It's consistent with Alzheimer's dementia in the moderate to advanced stage." David felt his stomach tighten. "How long?" "Impossible to say for sure. It could be years, it could be months. It depends on how the disease progresses. But with medication and proper care, we can significantly improve her quality of life." "Will she forget everything?" "Eventually, yes. The most recent memories will go first. Old memories, especially emotional ones, often last longer, but in the end, there will be very little recognition." "And is there nothing we can do to stop it?" "Not stop it, no, but we can slow it down. Medication helps. Cognitive exercises help. Social interaction helps. Keeping her active, engaged, connected with family, all of that makes a difference." David left the office feeling numb. His mother was going to forget him. She was going to forget Emily. She was going to forget everything. And there was nothing he could do to stop it. When he got home, he found Dorothy in the garden with Emily. The two were planting flowers. Mrs. Martha supervised from a distance, ready to step in if necessary. "Look, Dad," Emily shouted when she saw him. "Grandma is teaching me how to plant roses." Dorothy looked up. There was dirt on her hands and a smudge of soil on her face, but she was smiling, a genuine, happy smile. "David," she said, and for the first time since he had found her again, she used his name without hesitation or confusion. "Come help us." He crossed the garden and knelt beside the two. Emily handed him a rose seedling. "Grandma said roses need a lot of love to grow," the girl explained. "It's true," Dorothy confirmed. "Love and patience, just like people. David planted the rose next to the ones Dorothy and Emily had planted. The three worked in silence for a while, with only the sound of birds singing in the trees around them. In that moment, seeing his mother and his daughter together, smiling, happy, David made a decision. He wasn't going to spend the remaining time lamenting what he was losing. He was going to enjoy every moment he still had, every smile, every laugh, every memory he could create, because in the end, that's what mattered. Not the past, not the future, but the present. This moment, here and now. That night after dinner, David announced a decision. "I'm going to leave my job." Jennifer almost dropped the plate she was washing. "What? My job? I'm going to resign." "David, that's crazy. How will we live?" "We'll figure it out. I have some money saved, and I can do freelance work from home, but I can't go back to the office now, not while my mother needs me." "You have Mrs. Martha for that." "It's not the same. I want to be here. I want to enjoy the time I have with her, because according to Dr. Michael, we don't know how much time we have." Jennifer dried her hands and turned to her husband. "What did the doctor say?" David told her everything. About the brain atrophy, about the inevitable progression, about the bleak future that awaited Dorothy. When he finished, Jennifer was in tears. "My God, David, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry for complaining, for being insensitive." "You weren't insensitive. You were right. We couldn't continue the way things were, but now with Mrs. Martha helping, I can do this. I can be present for my mother without neglecting you and Emily." "Then let's do it. If you think it's right, I support you." David hugged his wife, feeling a wave of gratitude. He didn't know what he had done to deserve such an understanding woman. 2 days later, he submitted his resignation letter. His boss didn't understand, thought he was making a career mistake. But David didn't care. Some things were more important than a career. With more free time, David started doing things with Dorothy that they hadn't done together in years. They watched old movies she loved. They cooked together, although Dorothy often forgot what she was doing in the middle of the process. They listened to music from the 50s and 60s, and Dorothy sang along, remembering all the lyrics. It was in these simple moments that David discovered who his mother really was behind the illness. She had been a strong woman who raised a son alone after being widowed. She had dreams she never fulfilled, regrets she never expressed, but she also had love, lots of love, for her son, for her granddaughter, for that old house full of memories. One day, Dorothy had a moment of rare, full clarity. It was in the morning, right after breakfast. She looked at David and said, "I know I'm sick. I know my mind isn't working right." David stopped what he was doing. "Mom, let me speak. I don't know how long I'll be like this, lucid, so I need to say this now." "Okay, I'm listening. I forgive you for the fight, for the harsh words. I forgave you a long time ago, and I also want to ask for your forgiveness, for disappearing, for making you worry. I was angry, but I had no right to do that." "You don't need to ask for forgiveness, I understand. And one more thing. When I'm no longer here or when I no longer remember who you are, I want you to know that I love you. I've always loved you. You were the best thing that ever happened to me. My son, my pride." David couldn't hold back the tears. "I love you too, Mum. I've always loved you." Dorothy hugged him. It was a long, tight hug, the kind that says more than words ever could. When they separated, Dorothy wiped his tears with her thumb. "There. Now that I've said that, I don't need to have a heavy conscience." The lucidity lasted a few more hours, but by the end of the day, the confusion had returned. Dorothy didn't remember the conversation they had had, but David remembered, and he would keep those words forever. The months passed. Summer turned to fall, fall turned to winter. Dorothy's condition had its ups and downs. Some days were good, others were terrible. But through it all, the family remained united. Emily grew in ways that surprised David. The 6-year-old girl who had reunited with her grandmother on the street was now 7 and had developed a maturity beyond her years. She cared for Dorothy with a patience and kindness that would make any adult feel ashamed. When Dorothy got confused, Emily guided her back. When Dorothy got scared, Emily calmed her down. Mrs. Martha became part of the family. She wasn't just a caregiver, but a friend, a confidant, a crucial support for everyone. She knew when David needed some time alone and took over. She knew when Jennifer was at her limit and offered help. And she had a special connection with Dorothy, managing to reach her even on the most difficult days. David started working as a freelance consultant, having video meetings and working from home. The money was less than before, but it was enough, and the time he gained with his mother was priceless. There were also discoveries along the way. One day, while going through Dorothy's old things from the attic, David found letters that Dorothy had written but never sent, addressed to him. He read each one with a heavy heart. In one of them, Dorothy confessed that she had thought about selling the house, not because she needed the money, but because she wanted to give it to David. She wanted him to be able to buy a bigger house for the family, to give a better life for Emily. But David had misunderstood everything, thinking she was being stubborn and difficult. In another letter, she wrote about the loneliness after her husband died, about how the nights were long and too quiet, about how sometimes she wished she could just fall asleep and not wake up. The letters painted a portrait of a woman David didn't know, or maybe he knew, but had never truly seen. He had been so caught up in his own life, his own problems, that he didn't see his mother's silent suffering. There were also moments of unexpected joy. One day Emily decided to put on a talent show for the family. She invited Grandma as a special judge. Dorothy watched Emily dance, sing, do magic tricks, and applauded enthusiastically after each performance. At the end, she declared Emily the winner and gave her a kiss on the forehead. "You're going to be a star one day," Dorothy said. "I am?" Emily beamed with happiness. "Yes, you are, because you have something special. Something that shines from within." Another day, David took Dorothy to the old house again. This time it was just the two of them. They walked through the empty rooms, Dorothy sharing memories. She showed where David had taken his first steps, the kitchen corner where William always drank his morning coffee, the bench in the garden where she used to sit and read on Sunday afternoons. "You know what I learned living on the streets," Dorothy said suddenly. "That things don't matter. This house, this furniture, none of it matters. What matters is people, the connections, love." That's an expensive lesson to learn, but it's worth it, because now I know what truly has value. And it's you, it's Emily, it's family. The rest is just the rest. In the winter, Dorothy caught a bad flu. Her fragile body fought the infection. There were days when Dr. Michael suggested hospitalization, but Dorothy refused. She didn't want to die in a hospital. She wanted to stay at home, surrounded by family, but she didn't die. She fought the flu and won. When the fever finally broke and she opened her eyes, the first thing she saw was Emily, sleeping in a chair next to the bed. The girl had insisted on staying there all night, refusing to leave Grandma. Dorothy reached out and touched Emily's hair tenderly. The girl woke up. "Grandma, you're doing better." "I am, thanks to you." "What did I do?" "You gave me a reason to fight, to not give up." After the flu, something changed in Dorothy. It was as if the experience of nearly losing everything had clarified things for her. Her moments of clarity became more frequent. The confusion was still there, but less overwhelming. She began to recognize people and places more consistently. Dr. Michael explained that sometimes this happens. A traumatic event can, paradoxically, bring a person with dementia back temporarily. It wouldn't be permanent, he warned, but for now it was a gift, and Dorothy made the most of it. She spent those days talking with David about everything, about her own past, about regrets, about hopes. She asked to see old photos and told stories about each one. She asked David to play the piano. He had learned as a child, but stopped in his teens. He played forgotten songs, and Dorothy sang along in a weak but happy voice. One afternoon, Dorothy asked to speak with Jennifer alone. David was apprehensive, but allowed it. When Jennifer came out of the room half an hour later, she was crying. What did she say? She said thank you, for taking care of her, for accepting her into our home, for not giving up. And she said, I chose well, that I'm perfect for you. She's right. You are. And she made me promise something. What? That when she doesn't remember anything anymore, when the confusion comes back for good, I'll keep treating her with dignity. That I won't let her become a burden. That I'll always remember she's a person, not just a patient. Did you promise? I did. That night the whole family had dinner together. It was a simple meal, nothing elaborate, but it was full of laughter and conversation. Dorothy was at the center of it all, contributing to the talk, making jokes, being present. After dinner, they stayed in the living room. Emily asked Dorothy to tell a story. Dorothy thought for a moment, then began. Once upon a time, there was a woman who thought she had lost everything. She was alone, confused, afraid. She lived on the streets, with no one. But then one day, a little girl in a blue dress found her. And that little girl didn't see a dirty woman living on the street. She saw her grandma. And she brought her back home, and the woman discovered she hadn't lost everything. She had gained everything. She had gained a second chance. A chance to be a grandmother again, to be a mother again, to be part of a family. And she lived happily ever after, or at least as happily as she could be. When she finished, everyone was in tears. Emily hugged her grandmother tightly. That's my favorite story. It's mine too, my dear. It's mine too. The days kept passing. Spring arrived, bringing flowers to the garden. The roses they had planted together bloomed, filling the air with their sweet scent. Dorothy spent hours sitting in the garden, just watching, absorbing. Visitors started coming, neighbors who had known Dorothy before her disappearance, old friends that David had found and invited. Each visit brought new memories, new stories, and Dorothy absorbed it all, clearly happy to be surrounded by people again. One of these visitors was Mark, a childhood friend of Dorothy. He was a gentleman over 80 years old, using a cane to walk. "Dorothy Thompson," he said when he saw her, "I thought I'd never see you again." Dorothy looked at him, confused at first. Then something clicked. "Marky from the butcher shop. It's me indeed, you remember." The two spent the whole afternoon talking about the old days, about when they were kids playing in the streets of the old neighborhood, about dances they went to when they were young, about mutual friends who had passed away. When Mark left, Dorothy was exhausted but radiant. "It was good," she said. "To remember. Even if it hurts, it's good." But as Dr. Michael had predicted, the improvement didn't last. As the weeks passed, the confusion began to return. Slow at first, then faster. Dorothy began having trouble remembering where she was. Then, trouble remembering names. Then, faces. There came a day when she looked at David and asked who he was. "I'm your son, David." "Son?" She touched his face, studying it. "You're too big to be my son. My son is a little boy. He plays with toy cars in the backyard. I grew up, Mom, but it's still me." Dorothy shook her head, not convinced. From that day on, she treated David like a kind stranger who lived in the same house. She still recognized Emily, but called her little girl, not by her name. It was painful. Every day watching his mother slip further and further away, until only an empty shell remained of what she had been. But David kept his promise. He treated her with dignity. He loved her even when she didn't remember who he was. Mrs. Martha was essential during this period. She knew how to handle each new phase of the disease. When Dorothy started wandering the house at night, Martha installed safety locks. When Dorothy started refusing food, Martha found creative ways to get her to eat. When Dorothy started having hallucinations, Martha knew exactly what to say to calm her down. There were bad days. Days when Dorothy would scream, convinced that strangers were in the house. Days when she would become violent, attacking anyone who tried to approach. Days when she would completely shut down, not speaking, not reacting, just staring into nothingness. But there were also good days. Days when she would smile upon seeing Emily. Days when she would sing along to old songs. Days when she would recognize the house as home, even without knowing who the people in it were. 1 year after Dorothy had been found, the family decided to have a small celebration. It wasn't her birthday nor any special date. It was just 1 year since Emily had shouted, "Daddy, look, Grandma, she's alive." They made a cake. They invited Mrs. Martha and Dr. Michael. They played music that Dorothy liked. And for a few hours it was as if everything was normal. Dorothy didn't understand why they were celebrating, but she was happy anyway. She smiled, she laughed, She ate 2 pieces of cake. That night, after everyone had left and Dorothy was sleeping, David went out to the garden. He sat on the bench beneath the roses they had planted. They were in full bloom, red and vibrant against the dark sky. Jennifer came out and sat beside him. "What are you thinking about? About how everything changed in a year? About how a simple day downtown changed everything? Do you have any regrets? About finding her? Never. But I have regrets about before. About not appreciating the time we had. About wasting years arguing over things that didn't matter. You can't live in the past, David. You can only learn from it and move forward. I know, and I have learned. I've learned that family is the most important thing. That time is the most valuable gift we can give. That love isn't about words, but about actions. Your mother knows that. Even if she can't express it, she knows. I saw it in her eyes during the party today. She knows she is loved." David nodded, hoping Jennifer was right. The months continued. The second year after the reunion arrived. Dorothy was significantly worse now. She rarely left her bed. When she did, she needed a wheelchair. Her vocabulary had shrunk to a few words. Yes, Idno, girl when she saw Emily. But even so, there were still moments when she would touch something, a handkerchief, a photo, a rose from the garden, and something would light up in her eyes. It was brief, just a second, but it was there. It was during one of these moments that something extraordinary happened. Emily had just returned from school, now 8 years old. She entered Dorothy's room as she did every day. "Hi, Grandma. I'm back from school." Dorothy looked at her, and then, in a voice as clear as crystal, said, "Emily, my little granddaughter." Emily's eyes widened. "Grandma, you remembered." "I always remembered. Here." Dorothy touched her heart. "I always remembered here." "Do you remember Daddy, too?" Dorothy looked at David, who had entered the room behind Emily. "David, my boy, my good son." David approached the bed, tears already falling. "Mom, you remember?" "I do. I don't know for how long I'll remember. But now I remember, and I want to say that you gave me the greatest gift. You gave me love, you gave me time, you gave me a family again. You were always part of the family, always. I know, and I'm grateful for not giving up, for looking for me, for bringing me home." "It was Emily," David said. "She's the one who found you. She's the one who didn't give up." Dorothy looked at her granddaughter. "You're special, you know. Very special." "You too, Grandma." Dorothy smiled. Then her eyes began to close. "I'm tired now. I need to sleep." "It's okay. Sleep. We'll be here when you wake up." Dorothy fell asleep, and when she woke up hours later, the clarity was gone. The confusion was back, but David and Emily kept that moment, those words, that last glimpse of the Dorothy they knew. A few more months passed. Dorothy continued to decline. Dr. Michael suggested palliative care. There was nothing more they could do except keep her comfortable. It was a difficult period. Watching someone you love fade away is one of the worst experiences a person can go through. But through it all, the family remained united. David, Jennifer, and Emily took turns by Dorothy's bedside. Mrs. Martha was there every day, taking care of every detail. Neighbors and friends visited, bringing flowers, food, words of comfort. The house was constantly full of people, all wanting to express their love and support. On an autumn night, 2 years and 3 months after the reunion, Dorothy took her last breath. It was peaceful. She was sleeping, David holding one hand, Emily holding the other. Her face was calm, with no traces of pain or fear. "She's gone," Dr. Michael confirmed after checking her vital signs. David nodded, unable to speak. Emily hugged her grandmother one last time. "I love you, Grandma. I'll always love you." The funeral was small but dignified. David read a speech he had written the night before. "My mother had a long life, 82 years. She saw the world change around her. She saw war and peace, poverty and prosperity. She lost the love of her life too soon, but raised a son alone with strength and determination. She knew joy and she knew pain, and in the last years of her life she knew confusion and forgetfulness, but she never ever forgot what truly mattered: love, family, connection. Even when her mind failed, her heart remained strong. She taught us that it's never too late to start over, that forgiveness is possible even when it seems impossible, that family isn't about blood or obligation, but about choice, the choice to be present, the choice to care, the choice to love, even when it's hard. I will miss her every day. But I'm grateful for the 2 years we had her back. 2 years I never thought we'd have. 2 years of second chances. Thank you, Mum, for everything. Rest in peace. They buried Dorothy next to her husband, William, as she had requested years ago, in the family plot under a large shade tree. David planted a red rose on the grave, the same variety they had planted together in the garden. In the days after the funeral, the house felt strangely empty. Even Mrs. Martha, no longer coming, since there was no more work, left a void. The routine they had established over the past 2 years disappeared, leaving everyone a little lost. Emily felt it the most. She had spent 6 to 8 years caring for her grandmother. Now, suddenly, that part of her life was over. "Daddy," she said one night as David was putting her to bed. "Is Grandma okay where she is now?" "Yes, she is, my love. She's at peace." "Does she remember us now?" "I think so. I think now she remembers everything. All the good times we spent together. I'm going to miss her so much." "Me too. But it's okay that she's gone, because she was tired. And now she can rest." David hugged his daughter, amazed by her wisdom. "When did you get so smart?" "Grandma taught me. She said that when a rose withers, it leaves seeds so new roses can grow. I think that's it. She's gone, but she left seeds here. She touched her heart. And these seeds will grow and turn into good things." David couldn't hold back his tears. His 8-year-old daughter had understood something that many adults never understand. "You're right. And do you know what the best seed she left is?" "What?" "Love. She showed us how to love without conditions, without judgment. And that will stay with us forever." In the following weeks, the family began to adjust to the new normal. David went back to work, but this time with a different perspective. He didn't let work consume his life. He always made time for family, for lunches with Emily, for romantic dinners with Jennifer, for the things that really mattered. Emily fully returned to her normal childhood activities: school, playing, friends. But something in her had changed. She had an empathy, an understanding about the fragility of life that most children her age didn't have, and that made her special. Jennifer also changed. She had always been a good wife and mother, but now there was a depth in her that hadn't existed before. She understood better what really mattered, and that strengthened her marriage in ways she hadn't thought possible. One day, 6 months after Dorothy's departure, David went back to the old house. He had avoided going there since the funeral, but now he felt it was time. He opened the door with the key he always carried and went in. The house was still exactly as it was the last time they were there. Furniture covered, photos on the walls, clock stopped in time. But it didn't seem scary or sad. It seemed comforting, as if Dorothy was still there somehow. David spent the day cleaning. He took the sheets off the furniture, washed the windows, swept the floor. When he finished, the house seemed ready to be lived in again. He thought about selling it. But then he had a better idea. 2 weeks later, the house had been transformed. David hired renovators to fix the roof, repaint the walls, renew the garden. He bought new furniture, clean curtains, dishes and pots, and then he placed an ad: "House for rent, preference for families who need a fresh start." The first family to rent it was a single mother with 3 children. She had just left an abusive relationship and was trying to rebuild her life. When she saw the house, her eyes filled with tears. "It's perfect," she said, "but I don't know if I can afford the rent you're asking." David looked at the 3 children, all under 10 years old, looking around in wonder. "You know," he said, "I think I can lower the price. This house was made to welcome families. That's what my mother would have wanted." The woman almost collapsed with gratitude. And when she and her children moved in a week later, David felt he had done the right thing. Dorothy would have approved. 1 year after Dorothy's departure, they held a celebration in her memory. It wasn't sad, it was joyful, full of laughter and stories. They invited everyone who knew her. Mrs. Martha came, Dr. Michael came. Mark, the childhood friend, came. Neighbors came. The house was full. Emily gave a performance. She sang a song she had learned from her grandmother with a clear and strong voice. When she finished, everyone applauded. "My grandmother taught me many things," Emily said, "but the most important thing she taught me was that love is never lost. Even when the person is gone, the love stays. And as long as we have love, we are never truly alone." The end of the story. Now tell us what you thought of this story. Do you believe David made the right choice by not giving up on his mother? Leave your opinion in the comments with sincere words. Your story is also important to us. And if you know someone who is going through a similar situation, share this story. Don't forget to leave your like and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other touching stories that will move your heart.